Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to take you through the poem She Had Some Horses, which was written by Joy Harjo in the 1980s. So this is a seemingly simple poem. Each of the lines begins with the phrase, she had some horses, and then it describes different horses. But the question that comes up is, what are these horses a metaphor for? She's describing a lot of different horses with lots of crazy different personalities. The horses are male, they're female. Are the horses possibly a metaphor for Native Americans? Are they possibly a metaphor for all people? What the heck are these horses? That's kind of the question we need to answer. So there's a lot of possible interpretations. Um, you know, one of the things you could say about the poem is just simply that they're contradictory. Some of the horses were made afraid. They were made afraid, and yet they said they weren't afraid. And of course, at the very end, we have the line, she had some horses she loved, she had some horses she hated. These were the same horses. So the horses are contradictory. And then another possible interpretation is that perhaps the poem is about Native American trauma or just trauma in general. Even the opening stanza describes the horses as made of clay and would break. So that's the first hint that there's some fracture happening in this poem. Some weakness happening. But I'd like to introduce you to the idea of this poem being about sexual violence, particularly against Indigenous women. So listen, as early as the 1700s, Indigenous women and girls were particularly impacted because as females during wartime, colonial expansion, and slavery are especially vulnerable to the sexual violence that are so often accompanied by conquest. In some cases, even not in wartime, which is what's being described here, in peacetime, sometimes Indigenous people were squeezed off of their land and starving and cold, and so sometimes they just needed money in this new money economy. Sometimes out of desperation, some Indigenous women did prostitute themselves to mainly male settlers who were nearby. And sometimes Roxanne Dunbar describes how in some situations they were even cheated after prostituting themselves. They were not given the money they were supposed to get. 1 in 3 women. So even today, this sexual violence against Indigenous women remains a problem. 1 in 3 Native American women has been raped or experienced attempted rape, which is more than twice the national average. And in Indian boarding schools, which first opened in the 1800s but didn't close until the 1970s. The last of the Indian boarding schools didn't close till late into the 20th century. Sexual abuse of both boys and girls was rampant, right? Because in these Indian schools, we had this really unequal power dynamic between adults who were supposed to take care of them and then these children who had kind of been left to be taken care of under false pretenses. But Indigenous people make up only 1% of the US population, and yet they account for 25% of human trafficking victims. So the history underlying this, goes all the way back to colonial times. But it is something that we still deal with today. And I'm going to contend that this poem seems to be about this issue. So the scene, listen, the scene could be everywhere. In the opening stanza, she describes bodies of sand and maps and ocean and sky. She's describing ocean and air. And desert environments, bodies of sand and splintered red cliffs. The horses themselves are these natural elements. They are the scene themselves. And yet later on, after that first stanza, the scene shifts. There's not too much of a scene because mostly she's describing the horses, but the scene shifts to, I want to say, a bar. There's a lot of dancing that happens in this poem. The horses waltz nightly on the moon. You can't really dance on the moon, but I guess one of these horses just feels so delighted and is just high on something or alcohol or just really happy that it feels like they're dancing on the moon. Okay. One of the horses liked creek stomp dance songs, very specific. I'm not sure what kind of a song that is, but they knew what they liked, and that's what they liked to dance to. There's also alcohol in this song, in this poem, rather. We have one horse who is crying into their beer for some reason, and we have another horse who spit at male queen. So this might be a drag bar. There's a male queen in this poem, so and one of the horses spit at the male queens because the horse didn't like these drag queens. So all of this together suggests that maybe this is happening at a bar. Some the horses are dancing. There's a little bit of drinking going on. So that's another possible scene. And then at the end, of course, we have another scene, which takes place in a bed, in a bedroom. Yeah. The horse who climbed in her bed at night, which we'll talk more about. So a lot of these horses are also engaging in really self-destructive behavior. It's a theme that comes up. We got horses who threw rocks at glass houses. That is a phrase, don't throw rocks at glass houses. So what that means is don't criticize other people because you probably have the same fault yourself. So some of the horses, at least one of the horses, threw rocks at glass houses, criticized other people, even when they had some of the same faults themselves. We got horses who licked razor blades. That seems like a really bad idea. We had horses who she had horses who kept quiet in stalls of their own making. So the stalls is a reference to the horses, right? Horses live in stalls or kept in stalls. But this horse is in a stall of their own making. So this person is living a very small life, just a stall, but it is of their own making. They chose to do this. It was fully their own decision. We have horses who lied, probably not a good idea, some self-destructive behavior. We have horses who waited for destruction. They were waiting for destruction. Okay. So we have a lot of horses who are not taking very good care of themselves, and engaging in self-destructive behavior. And then the last thing I want to point out is this the sexual imagery that does come up. So listen, it's not in most of the poem, but if you go back and take a look, after this opening stanza, the very first physical attribute that is described of the horse is the long pointed breast and then the full brown thighs. So immediately we're pointed in a sexual direction. Thighs, we're okay, we're interesting. And then right after the sexual imagery, we had horses who laughed too much. So maybe this is like a flirting situation, or maybe the woman is uncomfortable in this sexual situation, right? When you laugh too much, it means you're uncomfortable. So this is okay. It was very early on. We get this sexual discomfort. The sexual imagery kind of goes away for a lot of the poem. We got the dancing, we got the beer. It seems like we have a little bit of a bar scene. But the sexual imagery comes back in full force in the last couple stanzas. Okay, we got horses who got down on their knees for any savior. So this could be religious. This could be a religious horse who says their prayers on their knees for their God. This is also sexual imagery because it's possibly someone getting on their knees to perform sexual acts for someone who they hope will save them, a partner or a lover who they hope will save them and be their knight in shining armor. We had horses who thought their high price would save them. So again, this is a reference to a horse. Horses are bought and sold, and some horses are more expensive than others. If they're a better breed, if they're healthy, they will go for a higher price. But in this case, we have this personified horse who has human attributes and is being sold for a price. Okay, wait, what? And they thought that their high price, I don't know how much prostitutes cost, but maybe I don't know. They thought it was a higher price. And they thought that having that high price would save them, would protect them from something. So potentially, I don't think maybe the horse is a slave, but for some reason, this horse is being bought and sold. This horse who is human is being bought and sold. And then, of course, at the end, we have a horse who climbed in her bed at night and prayed as they raped her. So the horse is the rapist in this poem. And in a twisted detail, this horse prayed as they raped her. So this is a religious horse who maybe believes that he is saving her as he rapes her. So pretty twisted, pretty graphic, pretty explicit. And then, of course, at the end, she had horses she loved, she had horses she hated. Love sometimes accompanies sex. And then sometimes hate also, right? Sometimes you hate the ones you love. So yeah, so I just want to point out it does go away for the middle part of the poem, where we have this bar imagery, but we come back in full force to that sexual imagery. And then here's the other thing. Okay, and then especially with the rape, right? And here's the other thing. The other theme that comes up is that a lot of these horses keep quiet. They keep quiet in stalls of their own making. They lie. We got some horses who told the truth, but then who were stripped bare of their tongue. So they learn to not speak up. These horses learn to not speak up, right? Because their tongues are going to be taken from them. They kept their voices secret and to themselves. We had horses who whispered in the dark. Maybe this is in the bedroom scene. I don't know. Who whispered in the dark, who were afraid to speak. We have horses who were afraid to speak, who did not speak. And then finally, we also have horses who screamed out of the fear of silence. So this is the contradiction again. We have the black and then we have the white. But this is a theme that comes up in this poem. We have these horses, these people want to and have to keep quiet. So together with this sexual violence, this imagery of sexual violence, it suggests that the horses, that the women keep quiet. Yeah. So it raises a lot of questions, and it's really kind of hidden from view in this poem. But I want to point out to you that it's there. And so if we understand this context of the pervasiveness of sexual violence against Indigenous women all throughout their history, and even today, we can understand that maybe the poet is trying to point out a lot of things about the Native American experience, but also point out this particular strand of it as well.